The midday sun cast a heavy glow over the dusty auction ground, stretching long shadows across the arena as the final few horses were brought into the ring. Most buyers had already left, satisfied with their acquisitions, leaving only a handful of stragglers idly observing. The auctioneer's voice, now hoarse from the day's exertion, called out one last time. "Lot 34, he announced, slapping his clipboard with visible impatience. 3-year-old stallion, mixed breed, severely underweight. Starting bid, $50. A murmur rippled through the remaining crowd. Some tilted their heads in mild curiosity, while others shook theirs in disdain. The horse that stumbled into the ring was a pitiful sight. His once lustrous bay coat was now dull and patchy. His ribs jutted out like jagged peaks, and his hollow eyes revealed the depths of his suffering. He looked like a ghost of the proud animal he once might have been. "Should have been sent to slaughter," someone muttered, and a few nearby nodded in agreement. At the edge of the crowd, Olivia gripped the fence tightly. She hadn't planned on being here today. Her parents had made it clear they didn't have extra money to spare. Yet, something unshakable had drawn her here. Now, as she gazed at the forlorn stallion, her heart ached in ways she couldn't explain. No creature deserved such a fate. The auctioneer cleared his throat, his frustration evident. "Do I hear $50 for lot 34? Silence. Not a single hand rose. 40, he tried again, his tone tinged with desperation. "Come on, folks. $30. Still no response. Olivia's heart raced. She didn't have much, just a crumpled bills in her pocket, barely totaling $35. But as she looked at the trembling horse, the hopeless slump of his head, something inside her snapped. "I'll take him," she blurted, her voice trembling but firm. All eyes turned toward her. The auctioneer hesitated before pointing in her direction. "Sold $30 to the young lady at the back." Her cheeks burned as whispers rippled through the crowd. Some scoffed. Others chuckled. "What's she going to do with that sack of bones?" a man joked, eliciting laughter from his companions. Olivia ignored them. Her gaze remained fixed on the stallion as he was led out of the ring, his steps unsteady. Her chest tightened with a mix of fear and determination. She didn't know how, but she was resolved to save him. When she approached the horse, his gaze met hers. Despite his exhaustion, there was a faint flicker of life in his eyes, a spark buried deep but still burning. She reached out, her hand brushing his bony neck. "I'll call you Chance," she whispered, "because that's what you deserve, a second chance." As she led him toward the trailer, a stable hand stopped her. "You're wasting your time, kid," he said with a shake of his head. "That horse isn't worth the hay you'll feed him." Olivia glanced back at Chance, her jaw tightening. "We'll see about that," she replied, her tone resolute. The trailer door creaked open, and with hesitation, Chance climbed aboard. Olivia didn't look back at the auction grounds as the truck rumbled down the dirt road. All that mattered now was giving this horse a fighting chance. The journey home was quiet except for the occasional groan of the trailer hitting bumps along the dirt road. Olivia gripped the steering wheel tightly, her mind racing. She kept glancing at the rear-view mirror, watching Chance sway with the movement of the truck. He looked so fragile, as if a single gust of wind could topple him. When they arrived, Olivia opened the trailer door carefully. At first, Chance didn't move. His legs wobbled when he finally stepped out, and Olivia's heart clenched. She moved closer, speaking softly. "It's okay, boy. One step at a time." Her soothing voice seemed to reach him. With great effort, he took a step, then another, until he stood on the uneven ground outside the trailer. She led him to a small paddock near the barn. It wasn't much, but it was a safe place for him to rest and recover. Her parents were waiting, their expressions a mix of disbelief and frustration. Her father, arms crossed, shook his head. "Olivia, what were you thinking?" he asked, his voice firm but not unkind. "I couldn't leave him there," she replied, her voice resolute. She gestured toward Chance, who stood awkwardly in the paddock, his head drooping. Look at him. He wouldn't have made it another day. Her mother sighed and exchanged a glance with her father. Liv, we don't have the money or resources to care for a horse like that. He'll need a vet, proper feed, and time. Time we don't have. I'll figure it out, Olivia said quickly. I'll take extra shifts at the diner and take care of him myself. Please, just give me a chance. Her father's expression softened. He looked at her mother, who nodded reluctantly. You've got a month, he said gruffly. If he doesn't improve, we'll have to make some hard decisions. Olivia swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. Thank you, she said quietly. That evening, Olivia worked tirelessly to make Chance comfortable. She gave him fresh water, mixed what little feed they had with supplements she'd picked up from the supply store, and brushed the dirt and debris from his coat. Each brushstroke revealed the toll neglect had taken on him. Sores, patches of missing hair, and scars that told stories she would never know. Chance stood still, his body too weak to protest. But as she worked, there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. It was as if, for the first time in a long while, he felt something other than despair. As if he understood that someone was finally trying to help him. Chance gave a faint sigh, his head leaning slightly into Olivia's touch. Tomorrow we'll call the vet, she whispered, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. We're going to get through this. But as the night stretched on, doubts crept into Olivia's mind. She sat in the barn, watching Chance as he rested on shaky legs. Could she really save him? Was she strong enough to shoulder this responsibility? Pulling out her phone, she began searching for information on caring for severely malnourished horses. The list of necessities felt overwhelming. Specialized feed, medical care, and above all, time. So much time. Exhaustion eventually overcame her. Leaning back against the barn wall, her eyes fluttered shut. Just as sleep was about to claim her, a soft sound broke the silence. A quiet nicker. Olivia's eyes shot open to see Chance looking at her, his ears twitching slightly. You're still here, she murmured, a small smile tugging at her lips. Good boy. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next morning, Olivia was jolted awake by a commotion outside. Her heart pounding, she rushed to the paddock, only to find Chance lying down, his legs folded awkwardly beneath him. He wasn't moving. Panic surged through her as she sprinted to his side. Dropping to her knees, her trembling hands reached out to touch his neck. Chance, come on, she whispered, her voice cracking. You can't give up now. The faint rise and fall of his chest was the only sign he was still alive. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as she stroked his neck, her mind racing for solutions. She had no experience with a horse in such a critical state, and her parents wouldn't approve of spending more money. Liv. Her father's voice broke through her panic. She turned to see him standing at the paddock's edge, his expression a mix of concern and resignation. Is he? He's alive, Olivia interjected quickly, brushing away her tears. But he's so weak. I need to call the vet. Her father hesitated before nodding. Do what you need to do. I'll cover the bill for now. Without wasting a moment, Olivia ran inside and called Dr. Michaels, the local veterinarian. Within an hour, the no-nonsense woman arrived, her practiced hands moving over Chance's frail body as Olivia watched anxiously. He's malnourished and severely dehydrated, Dr. Michaels said, her tone grave. His body is shutting down from the lack of nutrients. If we don't act fast, he won't make it. What can we do? Olivia asked, desperation thick in her voice. Dr. Michaels met her gaze. We'll start with 4 fluids and a specialized diet. But it's going to take time. A lot of time. And even then, there's no guarantee. Olivia nodded, her resolve hardening. I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what he needs. As Dr. Michaels worked, she explained the treatment plan. Olivia committed every detail to memory, determined not to make a single mistake. When the vet finished, she handed Olivia a list of supplies and instructions. You'll need to monitor him constantly, she said. Small, frequent feedings. Watch for signs of improvement or decline. And be prepared for the worst. Olivia swallowed hard. I will. Thank you. The days that followed were a blur of worry and exhaustion. Olivia stayed by Chance's side, feeding him tiny portions of the specially formulated mash and ensuring he stayed hydrated. Her parents pitched in when they could, but most of the responsibility fell squarely on Olivia's shoulders. She barely slept, her nights filled with anxious glances at the paddock and listening for any sign of distress. On the 5th day, something changed. Olivia was sitting in the barn, her head resting against the wooden wall, when she heard a rustling sound. She looked up to see Chance shifting his weight, his legs trembling as he tried to stand. "Chance," she whispered, her heart pounding as she scrambled to her feet. Hovering near him, her hands were ready to help if needed. Slowly, shakily, he pushed himself up. When he finally stood, Olivia felt tears streaming down her face. "You did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're a fighter." Chance nickered softly, his ears flicking forward. It was the first time he had shown real energy since arriving at the farm. Olivia reached out, running her hand down his neck. His coat was still dull, his ribs still visible, but there was a spark of life in his eyes now. "You're going to make it," she said with determination. "I promise you, we'll get through this." That night, for the first time in a week, Olivia allowed herself to sleep. As she drifted off, a sense of hope filled her heart. But deep down, she knew the battle wasn't over. Chance's recovery was only beginning, and the challenges ahead would test them both in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Olivia woke to her father's voice calling from outside. "Liv, you need to see this." She hurried to the paddock, her heart racing. When she arrived, her breath caught in her throat. Chance was standing, his ears alert, but he wasn't alone. Another horse, larger and imposing, had wandered onto their property. Its dark chestnut coat gleamed in the sunlight, a stark contrast to Chance's frail frame. The two horses stood facing each other, tension crackling in the air. "What's going on?" Olivia asked, her voice tinged with confusion and concern. Her father frowned. "Looks like we've got company." Olivia studied the unfamiliar horse, its confident stance setting it apart. "Where did it come from?" she asked. "No idea," her father replied, gesturing to a circular brand on the horse's flank. "But judging by that mark, it belongs to someone nearby. A prized animal. By the looks of it." The chestnut horse snorted, stepping forward. Chance flinched but didn't back away. Instead, he raised his head slightly, a faint spark of defiance in his eyes. "We need to find its owner," her father said, crossing his arms. "We can't afford to have it upsetting Chance while he's still recovering." Olivia shook her head. "He's not scared. Look at him. He's standing his ground." Her father frowned but didn't argue. He returned to the house to make calls, leaving Olivia alone with the horses. She moved closer to the paddock, her eyes fixed on Chance. Despite his cautious steps, there was no fear in his movements. The presence of the chestnut horse seemed to spark something in him, a will to engage, to prove himself. "Who are you?" Olivia whispered, addressing the chestnut horse. "And why are you here?" The horse flicked its ears toward her, then back at Chance. It was as if it recognized something in the frail stallion, a challenge, or perhaps a kinship. Whatever the reason, it wasn't leaving. Over the next few hours, Olivia watched as the two horses circled each other. Chance's steps were hesitant but steady, while the chestnut horse radiated calm authority. It was clear that this unexpected arrival would play a role in Chance's journey, whether as a rival, a teacher, or something else entirely. Ranger remained calm yet assertive, as though testing Chance's resolve. By evening, Olivia's father returned with news. "The horse belongs to the Whitaker farm, about 5 miles from here," he said. "I called them, and they'll send someone to pick it up tomorrow." Olivia's heart sank slightly. She had grown attached to the chestnut horse in just a few hours, but she knew it wasn't hers to keep. "What's its name?" she asked. "Ranger," her father replied. "Apparently, he's one of their best horses. Not sure how he ended up here." That night, as Olivia checked on Chance one last time before heading to bed, she noticed Ranger had positioned himself near the edge of the paddock closest to Chance. The two horses stood side by side, their postures relaxed. Olivia smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "You're not so bad, are you, Ranger?" she murmured. "Thanks for looking out for him." The next morning, Olivia woke early, knowing Ranger's owner would arrive soon. When she reached the paddock, the sight before her stopped her in her tracks. Chance was trotting, slowly and unsteadily, but trotting nonetheless. Ranger followed close behind, as if urging him forward. "Dad!" Olivia called, her voice brimming with excitement. "Come see this." Her father hurried over, his expression softening as he watched. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "Looks like that horse gave him some fight." Before they could say more, a truck pulled up the driveway. A man stepped out, his boots crunching against the gravel. He tipped his hat and extended a hand. "Name's Whitaker. I hear you've got my horse." Olivia nodded reluctantly, glancing at Ranger. "He showed up yesterday. He's been helping Chance." Whitaker followed her gaze and let out a low whistle. "That old thing? Didn't think he had much fight left in him." Olivia bristled at the comment, but stayed silent. She wasn't about to let anyone insult Chance after all he'd been through. "Well, I appreciate you looking after Ranger," Whitaker said, moving toward the paddock. But as he approached, Ranger trotted away, positioning himself protectively between Chance and Whitaker. The man frowned. "That's odd. He's never done that before." Olivia stepped forward, her heart pounding. Maybe he's not ready to leave." Whitaker hesitated, studying the interaction between the two horses. Then he sighed. "Tell you what, keep him for a week. If he's helping that horse of yours, maybe it's better he stays a while." Olivia's face lit up. "Thank you. I promise I'll take good care of him." As Whitaker's truck pulled away, Olivia turned back to the paddock. Chance and Ranger stood together, their bond undeniable. For the first time, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. But as she glanced at the horizon, an uneasy feeling settled over her. She couldn't shake the sense that their biggest challenge was still ahead. The days following Whitaker's departure were a whirlwind of progress and determination. With Ranger by his side, Chance began to show signs of recovery Olivia hadn't dared to hope for. His once timid steps grew steadier, and the hollow look in his eyes was slowly replaced with a spark of resilience. Ranger acted as both a protector and motivator, challenging Chance to push his limits while keeping a watchful eye on him. Olivia devoted every spare moment to their care. When she wasn't at school or working shifts at the diner, she was in the paddock mixing specialized feed for Chance or brushing his coat, which had started to regain its natural shine. She even began leading him on short walks around the property, each step a victory in its own right. One afternoon, as Olivia adjusted Chance's halter, her father approached, leaning on the paddock fence. His expression was softer than usual, his typically gruff demeanor tempered by something akin to pride. "He's looking better," he said. Olivia smiled, resting her hand on Chance's neck. "He's stronger every day. I think he's going to make it." Her father nodded. "You've done good, Liv. I didn't think it was possible, but you proved me wrong." The words warmed Olivia's heart. For weeks, she had been fighting not just for Chance, but also to prove to herself and her family that she could handle this responsibility. Hearing her father acknowledge her efforts felt like a small bridge forming between them. But even as Chance improved, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that his story wasn't over. There was something about him, an untapped potential that went beyond simple survival. One evening, as she sat in the paddock watching Chance and Ranger graze, a thought struck her. What if he could do more? She murmured to herself. The idea seemed absurd at first. Chance was still recovering, Asking anything more of him felt unfair. But the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. What if his recovery wasn't just about healing his body, but about giving him a purpose? The next day, Olivia visited the town library, combing through old books and articles about horse training, rehabilitation, and therapy programs. She was determined to uncover a way for Chance to thrive, not just as a survivor, but as a testament to resilience and redemption. At the library, Olivia read stories of horses once deemed hopeless, who went on to become champions in endurance riding, show jumping, or even dressage. Each tale filled her with inspiration and renewed determination. When she returned home, she found her father tinkering with the tractor. "Dad," she began, her voice hesitant but hopeful, "what if we trained Chance? Not just for recovery, but for something bigger?" Her father looked up, wiping grease from his hands. "Like what?" Maybe he could compete," she said. "I've been reading about rehabilitation stories, and some horses, ones just like Chance, went on to do incredible things." Her father raised an eyebrow. "Competing takes money, Liv. Equipment, trainers, entry fees. We can't afford that." "I know," Olivia said quickly, "but I'll figure it out. I can work extra shifts, sell some of my old things, and I'll do the training myself. I have this feeling, Dad, he's meant for more." Her father studied her for a long moment before sighing. "You've already surprised me once. Maybe you'll do it again." With her father's reluctant approval, Olivia threw herself into training. She started with small steps, leading Chance through basic exercises to rebuild his strength and confidence. Ranger stayed close as always, occasionally nudging Chance forward when he hesitated. Progress was slow, but Olivia refused to waver. Each day brought new challenges, Chance refusing commands or his energy faltering. But Olivia met every setback with patience and determination. Every small victory deepened their bond. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Olivia stood by the paddock watching Chance canter in a wide circle. His movements were still a little awkward, but there was a grace to him now that hadn't been there before. She could feel it in her gut. He was ready for something bigger. But just as she began to believe in their future, a shadow fell over the paddock. Olivia turned to see Whitaker leaning against the fence, his face unreadable. "I heard you've been training him," he said, his tone casual but laced with something darker. "You really think that bag of bones is what it takes?" Olivia's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "He's not just a bag of bones," she said firmly. "And yes, I do." Whitaker chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, I hope you're right, because if he embarrasses himself in a competition, it won't just be your pride on the line. People don't forget failure, Olivia, especially not in this town." He tipped his hat and walked away, leaving Olivia with a sinking feeling in her stomach. She turned back to Chance, who had stopped cantering and was now standing still, his ears twitching. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, stepping closer to him. "We're not done yet." The days leading up to the competition were a blur of effort and focus. Olivia poured every ounce of energy into preparing Chance, waking before dawn to train him and staying up late to research techniques. With Ranger's steadfast companionship, Chance continued to improve. His movements grew more confident, and his once dull coat now gleamed with health. The town's annual equestrian showcase was a modest event, but it drew a competitive crowd. Riders from nearby farms brought their best horses, each vying for a title that promised both prestige and redemption. Olivia knew she and Chance were underdogs. No one expected the skeletal horse she had saved to be a contender. But for Olivia, this wasn't just about winning. It was about proving Chance's worth to herself, to her father, and to the world. The morning of the competition dawned crisp and cold, the air buzzing with energy. Olivia loaded Chance into the trailer with Ranger by his side, her hands trembling with a mix of nerves and excitement. Her father stood nearby, his usually stoic expression softened with a glimmer of pride. "You ready for this?" he asked as she climbed into the driver's seat. Olivia nodded, her jaw set. "We're ready." When they arrived at the grounds, the stares began immediately. Whispers rippled through the crowd as Olivia led Chance and Ranger to their assigned stall. Most comments were dismissive. Some were openly mocking. "Is that the horse from the lot?" A man sneered. "Looks like he should have stayed there." Olivia ignored them, keeping her focus on Chance. She could feel the tension in his body, his ears flicking nervously at the unfamiliar sounds. Placing a calming hand on his neck, she murmured, "You've got this, boy." Just like we practiced. The first event was a basic agility course, designed to test responsiveness and coordination. Olivia's heart raced as she guided Chance into the ring. The announcer introduced them with little enthusiasm, his tone making it clear they were seen as a novelty at best. But as the whistle blew and Olivia gave the first command, something shifted. Chance moved, his steps precise and deliberate. Each obstacle he cleared seemed to silence a few more whispers from the crowd. By the end of the course, the quiet skepticism had turned to murmurs of surprise. Olivia felt a swell of pride. "Good boy," she whispered, stroking his neck as they left the ring. "You showed them." The rest of the competition was grueling. Each event pushed Chance further than Olivia ever had. There were moments of doubt, stumbles, hesitations. But Chance always recovered, spurred on by Olivia's steady encouragement and Ranger's watchful presence. By the time the final event began, the crowd's perception had shifted. They weren't laughing anymore. Olivia and Chance were no longer underdogs. They were contenders. The final event was a showmanship round. As Olivia led Chance into the arena, she could feel every eye on them. The announcer's voice was different this time, respectful, almost impressed. Taking a deep breath, Olivia gave her first command. Chance moved with a grace and confidence that brought tears to her eyes. Every step, every turn, every pause was a testament to how far they had come. When they finished, the crowd erupted into applause. Olivia looked at Chance, his head held high, and whispered, "You did it." They didn't win first place that day, but it didn't matter. The journey itself was the victory. As Olivia stood with Chance and Ranger, her father approached, his face lit with pride. "You proved me wrong again, Liv," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That horse isn't just a survivor. He's a champion." Olivia smiled, her heart full. Chance had gone from being an unwanted, forgotten stallion to a symbol of resilience and redemption. Their story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Together, they had defied the odds, proving that even in the face of adversity, there's always a chance for greatness. Chance moved with purpose, his strides measured and deliberate. He weaved through the cones and leapt over the low hurdles, not with the grace of a seasoned competitor, but with the determination of one who had something to prove. By the time he crossed the finish line, the crowd had fallen silent. Then, a smattering of applause broke out, hesitant at first, then growing louder. Olivia's chest swelled with pride as she patted Chance's neck. "Good job, boy," she whispered. "You showed them." The following events grew progressively more challenging, but Chance rose to the occasion each time. He stumbled once during the speed round, drawing a few snickers from the sidelines, but Olivia didn't let it shake her. This journey wasn't about perfection. It was about progress. By the time the final event arrived, Olivia and Chance had captured the attention of nearly everyone at the showcase. Even Whitaker, standing with his arms crossed, looked begrudgingly impressed. The last event was a high jump, a true test of strength and trust between horse and rider. Olivia hesitated as she approached the starting line. The jumps were higher than anything Chance had faced before, and she could sense his apprehension. Adjusting the reins, she leaned close to his ear and murmured, "You don't have to do this. But if you're ready, I know you can." Chance pawed at the ground, his ears swiveling forward. Taking a deep breath, Olivia urged him forward. The first jump came quickly, and for a moment, she feared he wouldn't clear it. But with a powerful push, Chance soared over the bar, landing gracefully. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Olivia felt tears sting her eyes. They weren't done yet, but in that moment, she knew they had already won. As they approached the final jump, Olivia's heart pounded. This was the culmination of months of hard work, sleepless nights, and unrelenting belief. The bar was set higher than any Chance had faced, and the tension in the air was palpable. Olivia leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. "Let's do this, Chance." With a surge of energy, Chance launched himself into the air. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Then they landed cleanly, steady, and strong. The crowd roared in applause. Olivia dismounted, her hands trembling with a mixture of exhilaration and pride. Whitaker approached, his expression unreadable. "I'll admit, I didn't think you had it in you," he said, tipping his hat. "But you proved me wrong." Olivia smiled, her hand resting on Chance's neck. "He proved us all wrong." As the sun set over the showcase grounds, Olivia stood beside Chance and Ranger, a deep sense of accomplishment settling over her. They hadn't taken first place, but it didn't matter. Chance's transformation from a frail, rejected horse to a competitor was the real victory. Yet, as Olivia looked at the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The days following the competition were a whirlwind of emotions. Though they hadn't won first place, the response they received was overwhelming. Spectators and competitors approached Olivia with admiration, their skepticism replaced by genuine respect. Chance, the horse once deemed worthless, had captured the hearts of everyone who saw him. Back at the farm, life slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Chance continued to grow stronger, his body filling out and his coat gleaming in the sunlight. Ranger remained his steadfast companion, the bond between the two horses as unshakable as the one between Olivia and Chance. One afternoon, as Olivia was brushing Chance's mane, a familiar truck pulled into the driveway. Whitaker stepped out, his boots crunching against the gravel. Olivia's father emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "Whitaker," he greeted cautiously, "what brings you here?" Whitaker tipped his hat. "I came to talk to your daughter." Olivia's heart skipped a beat as she stepped forward, the brush still in her hand. "What is it?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Whitaker took a deep breath, his gaze shifting to Chance. "I'll admit, I didn't think much of that horse when I saw him at the auction. But after watching him at the showcase, well, I can't ignore potential when I see it." Olivia frowned. "What are you saying?" "I've got connections," Whitaker said. "Trainers, sponsors, access to competitions you'd never dream of. I think Chance could go far. Farther than you can take him here." Olivia's stomach twisted. She glanced at Chance, who was nuzzling Ranger's neck. The thought of letting him go, of trusting someone else with his future, made her chest ache. "I'm not selling him," she said firmly. Whitaker chuckled. "I'm not asking you to sell him. I'm offering a partnership. You keep him, but I'll fund his training and entry fees. In exchange, we split any winnings 50-50ths. Her father stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "That's a generous offer." "It is," Whitaker agreed. "But it's not just about the money. That horse has something special, and I'd hate to see it wasted." Olivia hesitated, her mind racing. She knew Whitaker's offer was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, one that could change everything for Chance and for her. But the idea of placing his future in someone else's hands filled her with doubt. "I need time to think about it," she said finally. Whitaker nodded. "Take all the time you need, but don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come around often." That night, Olivia sat in the barn, leaning against the wall as Chance and Ranger dozed nearby. Her father joined her, sitting down with a heavy sigh. "You've got a big decision to make," he said. "I know," Olivia murmured. I don't want to lose him." "You're not losing him," her father said gently. "You're giving him a chance to be something bigger. Isn't that what you've been working toward?" Olivia looked at Chance, her chest tightening. Her father was right. Everything she had done, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, had been for Chance's future. This wasn't just about her. It was about giving him the life he deserved. The next morning, Olivia called Whitaker. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. "But I have conditions. I stay involved in every decision about his training and care. He's still my horse." Whitaker chuckled. "Fair enough. Welcome to the big leagues, Olivia." Months passed, and Chance's training began in earnest. Under professional guidance and with Olivia's unwavering dedication, he blossomed into a true competitor. His story spread, attracting media attention and inspiring others. People came from miles around to see the horse that had defied the odds. At their first major competition, Chance entered the arena with his head held high. Olivia sat in the stands, her heart pounding as she watched him move with the confidence and grace of a champion. When he cleared the final jump and the crowd erupted into applause, tears filled her eyes. As she stood by his side afterward, stroking his neck, she whispered, "We did it, Chance. We really did it." But deep down, Olivia knew this was only the beginning.